Welcome to the Orchestrate All the Things podcast. I'm George Anatiotis and we'll be connecting the dots together. MLOps is the art and science of bringing machine learning to production, and it means many things to many people. The State of MLOps is an effort to define and monitor this market. I hope you will enjoy the podcast. If you like my work, you can follow Link Data Orchestration on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So, thanks again, everyone, for making the time to discuss today. And the occasion is the State of MLOps, which is work that Ori has just produced a few days ago, I think a week or something like that. And we also have Lior from Monte Carlo with us, who is quite knowledgeable on the topic. And so I think it's going to be a pretty interesting discussion. But well, my job here is basically to facilitate and get out of the way as much as possible. So without further ado, I'll just head to you for introductions and just a few words about yourselves and your backgrounds. So whoever wants to go first.
Lior, you can go first.
Should I go? Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Lior. I'm one of the co-founders of Monte Carlo. We're the data observability company, so helping out folks both with managing data reliability as far as it concerns their ML models and analytic dashboards and analytic data stores. Before Monte Carlo, I used to run engineering at a company called Barracuda. It's a cybersecurity firm. Worked on machine learning to help prevent some of the more advanced fraud use cases. That's where I got a lot of my passion and excitement about MLOps in the first place, and very excited to be here today.
Great, thank you. And Ori?
So hi. So my name is Cohen. I'm from Israel. Currently working for Relic, doing machine learning and data science. I have a background in machine learning. I did my PhD in computer science, brain-computer interface with machine learning, and I've been doing machine learning ever since.
Okay, well, great, thanks. And actually, that's a good segue for actually kind of kicking off the discussion. The fact, I mean, that you mentioned, Ori, well, a number of things that you mentioned. First, that you've been into machine learning for quite a while. And second, that your day job, let's say, is with New Relic. And I was wondering when I realized that, where did you ever find the time for such an extensive project as the one you just put out, which is called State of MLOps? And yeah, I was wondering if you would like to share a few words about your motivation, basically, and a little bit about the background of the project. Like, yeah, besides motivation, what made you choose those specific data points that you collected? How did you collect them? What's the technical infrastructure you used for the project, and this kind of thing?
Okay, many questions. You'll have to remind me some of them.
Sure, sure. If you miss something, I'll remind you. No worries.
So I usually write on Medium. I wrote a big article about monitoring and observability for data scientists maybe 2 years ago based on experience in the previous company. And it was kind of a call to actions for data scientists to start monitoring their models, or probably everything related to their models, not just the models themselves. It's available on Towards Data Science, which is a publication on Medium. So I came back to that subject again recently, and I started to think about data science teams and developer teams, and found out that there's a kind of there's a gap between both teams. So certain team is responsible until a certain point, and from that the other team. So I started to think, can I write something about it, like an opinion article, and another call to action that we should not just monitor data, we should also monitor data pipelines, and kind of going that route of it's not just data and just data pipelines separately, it's kind of like a correlation of both, which kind of sits well for the things that we can do in New Relic. Yeah, but it's not related to New Relic, it's just like an afterthought. So I started writing that article, and then I said, okay, so I did a market review for a lot of monitoring companies in the previous article. So let's do another one. And then I started doing another one. And I found out that there are more than 30 new companies in that space, which is crazy. It's only been 2 years. And so I said, okay, so let's get some more information. Let's look at the, like, what kind of, are they data centric or data pipeline centric? Are they doing both, correlating between those things? Which personas they're catering to? Is it just data science, machine learning engineer, data science leads, business personas, executives? Try to figure out to map that whole space, and then kind of, okay, so how much money did they raise, and how many people do they have in their company, and based on how many sales they have on the LinkedIn page, can I speculate how many clients they have? So it became like a huge project, and I thought, okay, so I'm not going to keep this to myself. It's probably best to share it, and so I built a website, and I got help from a friend, Liran Hasson from Aporia, which is one of the companies, and he said, you should put it on Airtable. It will look nice. And I said, okay, cool, let's do that. So Airtable became the product that I'm using, and also the product that I'm giving to everybody who's reading that table. And it has really nice features. It's really easy to use. I'm not selling Airtable, but it's a great product. So then I said, okay, let's do a small marketing campaign. We had a week off at New Relic. We were given a week off just because we worked really hard for the last year and a half. And I said, okay, so we can't go abroad. We can't, because we have kids, and we can't take them with us, and like nobody's vaccinated abroad or something. So let's see if I can push on some big projects in that week. So this was one of the projects that I finished, and I marketed it, and it made a really good impact. Everybody wants to be on the list. Mm-hmm. Everyone wants to do demos with me now, even though I've done demos with them for the last 2 years. Everybody wants to change something in the description, in that table, and you missed that feature. And I said, okay, so give me, if you want to give me feedback, I'll fix it, but I will validate it first. And yeah, I hope that answers most of the questions.
It does. And I have to say that, well, I totally sympathize, especially with the last part of what you were describing, since, well, among other things, I'm also an analyst. And yes, it's precisely as you described. So when you start an effort like this, well, and it gets some traction, then, well, obviously then everybody wants to be included, and everybody wants to add this new little feature or that, and everybody wants to brief you. And, well, long story short, it gets pretty much out of control quite fast. So I hope you're able to keep up, and you're not regretting having created a monster.
Oh, of course not. No. I hope it helps people, because it shouldn't sit on my computer. And it's like, you can see good analysis. You can, I don't know if it's good, but you can analyze it pretty well, like the space, and you can see like everybody's almost following the same persona, and like mostly around data and not data pipelines. So you can see where the market is going, which is pretty nice to see once you have that mapping.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great, thanks. So then, Lior, the company that you have co-founded, actually, Monte Carlo, is among the ones included in Ori's analysis. So I was wondering if you'd like to share with us, well, first of all, if you have like an opinion on the work that he's done, and then how do you see, well, both yourself personally, but I guess mostly speaking about the organization as a whole, how do you see the work that you do in relation to the overall, let's say, MLOps landscape?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I want to thank Ori for spending his vacation time building out this list. I think it's incredibly useful. I think that data ops and ML ops spaces are at the end of the day very early in their life cycle, and there's so many different solutions. The market hasn't really formed out very clearly yet. I'm sure our customers and everyone in general do feel confused about all the different capabilities that exist in all different vendors. And so I think what Ori has done is critical in helping create clarity around what different solutions do, what they don't do, and how the people that are building data products and data pipelines should consider the different pieces of their stack. So I want to commend Ori for actually doing that and publishing it and circulating it. As far as Monte Carlo goes, so we call ourselves the data observability company. And when we say data observability, we're kind of borrowing a term that was originally used in the context of a new Relic, right, of Ori's employer. And it's the idea that if you're building a software product, right, there's a set of methodologies and tools, New Relic being one of them, that you adopt in order to make sure you're delivering quality and reliability in your software products, right? It's a whole practice called DevOps or site reliability engineering. And over the years, people have developed those methodologies and those tools. Monte Carlo was founded to help people that specifically build data products, and as we know, data products are composed of software, but also of data, and so it poses quite a different challenge from what some of the software observability vendors have created over the years. And Monte Carlo was founded to address just that, and the way to think about Monte Carlo is kind of like a new Relic for your data pipelines and data products, right? So we're trying to connect to as much of the infrastructure as possible, the infrastructure that our customers use, and create end-to-end visibility, really, by collecting metadata and logs and metrics, creating end-to-end visibility around the health of the system, the health of the data that's flowing through the system. And so we help our customers monitor the data that goes into training or inference of their machine learning model. We help customers track the health of the dashboards that their companies rely on to make decisions. We help customers track the data that goes into product features that they're building, right? Modern products are heavily used data in dashboards and analytic stuff, and automating marketing and services and operations. And so in order to guarantee the reliability and the SLAs of these things, Monte Carlo is kind of the by now the established way to do that, and we're excited to work with some of the best data teams in the world. And yeah, does that answer your question, George?
Yes. To be honest with you, well, as you probably know, recently I had a kind of related, let's say, conversation with some people from another company in the space called Soda, and I guess the core of our conversation was precisely around terminology and what does each term precisely mean and how it's defined and so on. So there's many terms flying around, and after that conversation, at least I felt a little bit better about myself in the fact that I'm not the only one who's not entirely comfortable with all of them. It seems that even people like them or like yourselves who are very very much into the core of it sometimes have a hard time clearly differentiating one from the other. So with that in mind, I guess it's a good time in the conversation and a good idea to actually try to define a little bit what people mean when they say MLOps. Actually, I mean, in broad strokes, the way I understand it, at least, it's I guess what you referred to earlier, Lior. So basically, the idea of, let's say, applying the DevOps notion in machine learning space, which is a bit more complicated than your good old DevOps in a way, because it's not just code that you have to keep track of. It's also data sets and models, and just adding all of those together gets pretty complex quite soon, I guess. So whoever wants to go first at trying to define, let's say, what MLOps means for you personally, and what do you think falls under this umbrella?
Where do you want to go? You're the writer of the State of MLOps, so.
Yeah, sure. So do you guys know that figure from Google's there's a little square in the middle and which is ML and everything around it? Everybody knows that, right? Mm-hmm. So I think MLOps can practically mean everything related to that space around that small box of machine learning. So it could be, you could start with data and engineering, data science, analysis, DevOps, infrastructure systems, experiment management for which was like the previous state of MLOps 2-3 years ago. A lot of companies that came about started to do experiment management, and of course now it also means monitoring and observability. So for data pipelines, etc. So all of that for me is MLOps. I hope you agree.
Well, it's not about agreeing or disagreeing. Actually, I was just curious, just how does each of you define it? Because something tells me that if you ask, let's say, there's like a joke. If you ask, two doctors, you probably get 4 opinions, and I'm wondering if the same goes for machine learning practitioners as far as MLOps.
Maybe if Lior did his PhD, you can ask the 2 doctors here, and we can give you an answer.
I agree with Ori 100%. The way I kind of articulated to myself, it includes everything that Ori mentioned. MLOps for me is broadly the practices and the tools that help you deliver machine learning with certain constraints that you're interested in. So, for example, we all want to ship faster, right? We want to build faster. We want to increase our velocity. We all want reliability in our products, right? We want to we want to release something and have high confidence that it's going to work. We want to manage SLAs, right? We want to make sure it's going to meet certain requirements in runtime. We want to make sure it's secure, right? Like we might want to address certain compliance requirements that we have, right? So MLOps for me is the set of tools and practices that help you accomplish those goals as a company. And every company might have different goals depending on its own kind of priorities and use case. But it's this stack that really helps you do that effectively and quickly and securely and compliantly and reliably, right? So yeah, that's how I view it, if that's of any help.
Okay, yeah.
That's a great answer, by the way.
Great. Well, thanks both. And so then again, I guess having kind of defined, let's say, at least in your views, how MLOps, what MLOps applies to, let's say. I think it's very, very interesting the work that you've done, Ori, in trying to distill, let's say, the different facets that apply to solutions in this space. So you mentioned briefly earlier in your introduction that you identified different aspects that sort of characterize solutions in this space. And you used, well, kind of classic, let's say, tabular format for that. And you mentioned you also used Airtable to serve that basically in your website. And going through that, well, first of all, I have to agree with you that it's it's pretty easy to use and therefore quite approachable, I would say, by everyone. And so I tried to identify the facets that, well, I found the more important. At least you have collected many different data points for each solution that you included. Some of them are, well, kind of trivial, let's say. Some of them I think are more important in the sense that I feel that they sort of define the category. So I would like to basically go into a little bit more depth into those. So one of those to start with was product focus. And you have identified some different values for that. Would you like to elaborate on your rationale for doing that?
Yes, of course. So product focus is already mentioned, but it's is the company more centric around or more focused around data or data pipelines, or data and data pipelines separately, or both? So some companies will just monitor and observe data. So inputs, model internals, outputs, things like drift loss, precision recall, accuracy, drift for data, drift for labels, etc. So basically looking at the world of data around models. And other companies will do a kind of a similar but different thing around data pipelines. So for example, you could monitor queries or data frames or steps within DAGs, direct acyclic graphs. So it's a different focus, and there are only a few companies that are actually doing both. Some of them are doing it like one next to the other, and some of them are, I think, are trying to kind of correlate between events. So if you have a problem with your data, it could mean that maybe a machine or some host or servers has died, or the CPU is at 100%. And if you correlate that, you will allow the developer, the DevOps, whatever the persona that you're catering to find the problem quicker. And that's actually kind of what we're trying to do in New Relic right now with the new MLOps product.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Then the next one that kind of piqued my interest was the personas facet. So you identified a few different personas that the solutions addressed.
Yeah. So when you talk about personas, if you're a data-centric company, you are probably catering to data scientists, data science leads, maybe machine learning engineers, could be data analysis, data analysts, sorry. And if you're a data pipeline company, it could be data ops, data engineering, but it could be a mix. So it's there's kind of a stereotype for data centric and for data pipeline centric, but you could see a mix of all those personas. And there's also maybe a business executive or someone which imagine that there's a data scientist, and he's working on a GPU machine, and the GPU machine costs a lot of money. So maybe there's a dashboard somewhere for some data executive who cares about using or that use case and looking at how many spend they have on GPU machines, or how does the business KPI is impacted by models that are broken, going down, having issues, etc. So data observability is not necessarily just for the tech people, it's also for the executives. And I also have an article about that, which I wrote with our previous PM Dole.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Then, and yeah, I think that's a very good point actually, and it's interesting to see how its solution deals with it and which of these personas they're able to address and in what way. Another interesting aspect is data types. So I think that's more straightforward, probably, like what kind of data you're able to monitor, right?
Yeah. So I think most companies start with tabular data because it's the easiest use case to do. Some companies are now, there's quite a few actually, but they're going into images. So computer vision and audio, and it started spreading towards that area because in some ways, tabular data is kind of mostly solved. Like you get that 80%, so they can move on to those other things and kind of at the moment differentiate themselves from the other companies in that space.
Yeah, and yeah, that's actually another good point. I was recently also doing a little bit of analysis work and related but different area in data labeling tools, and yeah, that was again in this area a very important aspect. So what kind of data its tool is able to cater to. And let's say last but not least, out of the what piqued my interest at least as the most important set of facets is the features. So would you like to say a few words about that as well?
Yes, of course. So let me just look at the features because there are many. So let's just take the data-centric companies. They are mostly, so the features that they have is mostly around drift. So it could be data drift or concept drift for labels, data quality, data integrity, which could be the same, but kind of different. It depends. You need to look at the company's website and ask them like exactly what they are doing behind the scenes. Monitoring bias and fairness, which is probably getting more important now with the EU regulations that were just released like a few months ago. Obviously, anomaly detection, segmentation, tracking, and explainability in general. So those are the basics and probably the most important thing to start right out of the box and to help you catch issues. And companies are building on that and expanding and updating and upgrading their offering.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thanks for the mini analysis, very condensed and to the point. So, Lior, I was also wondering, you may have your internal analysis, and you definitely have your product management team, and your sprints and the features you're pursuing, and also you're probably also keeping an eye on the competition. So in that lens of someone who's who has a different point of view, let's say, on the kind of analysis that Tori did, does that resonate with you? Does it make sense? Is it a sensible lens to use to look at this landscape? Would you, I don't know, have something to comment or add or subtract to the kind of analysis that he did?
Yeah, no, I think the analysis is brilliant. I think, and I agree with pretty much everything Ori mentioned here. I think the persona element of it is critical. There's a lot, again, there's a lot of confusion in the industry, but the ML engineer, the analyst, the data scientist, and the data engineer, they all have a very different set of concerns and products that meet those concerns and needs, and I think it's really critical to understand that. Just looking at kind of my neck of the woods, if you look at observability, right? Giving observability into machine learning models that are running in production is very, very different from providing observability on data pipelines, on the data pipelines that are feeding those models, right? And while we both use the word observability, we're actually servicing different personas, right? Like, something like Monte Carlo would speak more to the data engineers, the analysts, whereas kind of AI observability would speak more to machine learning engineers that are accountable for specifically for models running in production. So I think that's a kind of very, very important distinction. And the feature set, I agree with Ori. There's a good amount of overlap there, but there's also differences. There's also differences in the stack that you would work with, right? As a pipeline observability company, if you will, we're focusing a lot on the data lake, on the data warehouse, on the analytic dashboards that are consuming from there. Whereas in AI observability, you might focus more on the stack that people use to deploy, to train, and then deploy machine learning models and the frameworks and libraries that are used in that context. So I agree with Ori's analysis, and I think it adds a lot of clarity to what folks that are building stuff should be thinking about.
Okay, great. We still have like a few minutes left, so let's wrap it up with future plans, I guess. And I'll follow up initially with you, Lior, since you were the last to speak. And I'm going to ask you, having sort of defined, let's say, the space in general and some very important facets that you can use to understand and classify the solutions in that space, where do you see Monte Carlo in the going forward, basically? So do you plan on adding more features or more personas, or how are you going to grow your offering?
Yeah, I think Monte Carlo, our objectives, if you will, are to help mostly data engineers, data analysts, data scientists know about data health issues as soon as they happen. So basically reduce the time to detection. We want to help them resolve problems quicker. So as soon as you know that you have an issue in your data infrastructure, how quickly can you get to resolution and fix it? And then we also want to help folks prevent those things from happening in the first place, and that's actually possible and something that we're very excited about. And we're building across the stack to address all of those. So we're building new capabilities to help detect things earlier, right? So we're tackling more and more data health issues, and we're accelerating time to detection. So I think, over the last 2 years, we've gotten from, what would have been weeks or months, we shortened it to hours. And then I think going forward, we'll get there closer to the minutes mark, right? I think on the resolution side, there's so much we can do to help. Data issues are complex in the sense that they can, like Ori said, it can come from an operational issue in the infrastructure, but it could also come from a change or a drift in the data. It can come from a code change that had unintended consequences. And so kind of putting a full picture of that together and helping teams really get a full sense of what's going on and how to fix issues is another area where we're investing a lot and making a lot of progress. And again, time to resolution can, some teams will measure it in weeks or months right now. and we're shooting to get to minutes and hours. And finally, with prevention, I think by feeding the learnings from data health issues and how they were detected and how they were resolved, and kind of capturing that knowledge and helping the team gain access to it, in the future as things get built and planned and operated. That's something we're very excited about as well, and are putting a lot of investment there to help address that. And of course, we're trying to do all of that end to end, right? So we're constantly adding new integrations and new capabilities. We've focused on historically we've built data warehouse and BI integrations. Now this year we've been working a lot on data lake integrations, and there's a lot of exciting stuff around orchestration and streaming and those kinds of things that we're going to release later this year and then going into 2022.
Great, thanks. I guess for you, Ori, things are, if not simpler, at least a bit different. So you don't have a product to cater to, but you still have your pet project, let's say. And now that you've made the big push using that extra week, and then you managed to get it out, how do you plan to keep it up to date? And what's your ambition with that?
So the two things. Also, there is that point that companies don't change so often. So maybe the next update will be in 6 months or maybe a year. But there are also two forms inside the web page that companies can submit their details or ask for changes. So if companies work with me, this could be a lot easier. And there is a new list for what I'm hoping to be an exhaustive MLOps companies, not just MLOps monitoring. So if companies want to submit their details, feel free. But I keep in mind that I try to validate everything. So
yeah. That's for me personally, again, having been where you are, that's the hardest part, the most time consuming. And everyone who's ever done that really appreciates the kind of work that you put into it. So well, thanks for doing that. I think you probably hear that a lot because I think it's really useful work that helps many people. And thanks for making the time for the conversation. Thank you both, and I hope it's been a nice experience, and people will find it interesting. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you like my work, you can follow Linked Data Orchestration on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook.